Excellent. Really glad to have you on board. We have Ray Nicholls with us today. It's a real treat. So Ray and I share an early career in recruitment of finance professionals. But over time, our experience has taken us in slightly different directions, but we share entrepreneurial journeys into businesses, and we've moved into executive leadership coaching and professional networking. So today we're going to be really focusing on networking because that is one of Ray's moments of expertise. So I've got a few questions for you, Ray.
Brilliant. Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your background and how and why networking has been such an integral part of your career.
Sure. Great question. Recruiting finance people, reflecting kind of on my career, networking, whilst it's a term that everybody knows and understands, it's actually about everything that you do. It's not something that you necessarily realise that you're doing at the time. And when I first embarked on recruitment just way back in 2000, after 9/11 and the tech bubble bursting, I realised very quickly that accountants, even the most accomplished accountants, the most senior accountants, don't want to be sat idle. They don't want to be sitting around the house keeping the sofa warm. They want to be out doing stuff. And sat in the office in the early business that I worked for on Putney High Street, I had a succession of quite senior banking people that were casualties of kind of the banking industry pausing and getting rid of people. They would pitch for even the most junior of work just to keep themselves occupied and keep themselves busy. So I had bankers pitching for credit control work. It's an important early discovery. So what that basically, there was a light bulb moment there, and over the course of the next couple of years, which were actually quite tough, kind of 2002, 2003, 2004, I kind of promised all of the people that I met that I would reach out to them and give them the opportunity to say no for all of the roles that I picked up. They had to be obviously slightly relevant, but if they were bright and if they had the skill to be able to do the job, I'd give them the opportunity to say no. And I've never left that behind. I've never really wanted to be the guy that said you're completely irrelevant and the no man at the recruitment firm. And so I've really adopted that. And the payback really came between kind of 2004 up until kind of the end of 2006, when all of the people that I did give the opportunity to say no to came back and started recruiting people through me. So it's that kind of that repay thing. It was a really interesting thing that I've taken with me throughout the whole of my 20-year career.
And I think lots of people in recruitment in the industry that we both started in just didn't recognize that and never seemed to learn it. So you learned it earlier than most, and I guess that's why you're here today talking to us about how to do it. So do you think the idea of networking has changed over the last decade?
I think it has. I think there's still a lot of mystery around networking. I know anybody that I speak to, regardless of their kind of seniority, there's a pause and a bit of almost an anxiety moment because they feel that networking isn't really for them. It's for the gregarious people in the room that are surrounded by people, and it's all for the elites, the people that are kind of connected or in the upper circle. And in actual fact, that's a bit of a lie. It's accessible. It's for everybody, and everybody's invited. That kind of old saying of it's not what you know, it's who you know, is really, really very important. People forget that, and that kind of gets lost. That's not networking anymore, but actually it really is. I think networking has moved more towards online communication methods. So there are lots of things you can get involved with, online conferences and webinars everybody will be doing while they're in lockdown. And through the kind of the more connected environment that we all live within, people are much more contactable. So for example, if you're using WhatsApp as a communication platform, you can tell anybody in your contact book who's on the platform. You can communicate with them. Mm-hmm. So back in probably late 90s, early 2000s, the saying was that everybody was within 6 degrees of separation. So you were only six kind of relationships away from somebody that you really wanted to get in touch with. And with the advent of technology, that's completely changed. You're more within 3 degrees of separation now, which means that people are a lot more contactable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess the networking again is it's become a bit more noisy and a bit more visible. You know, people are networking more than they've ever done before. It's become a bit more fashionable and popular now. And I remember, particularly in my early days of my career, people would find their opportunity really for progression or for career enhancement through building out almost a support infrastructure within the business that they've started in. So you'd get to know, you know, kind of people in middle management really, that when you got to your 3rd year anniversary, you look to them to help champion you through the ranks and to get promotion within your career. Mm-hmm. That model is pretty much gone now. The labour market's a lot more fluid. People will tend to spend 3 years in a job. The first year they'll plan what they're going to do. The second year they'll execute it, and the third year they'll get it ready to hand over to somebody else. So with people leaving businesses for either promotion or increase in salary, that support infrastructure internally within a business has kind of evaporated. It's gone now. And then you get, again, back to the beginning, that whole anxiety thing around networking. You know, I guess the lie is that you've got to go out and sell yourself to a room full of strangers. And most, particularly accountants, don't like doing that at all. I mean, I'm a sales guy. I don't really like doing that. So it needn't be about selling yourself to people that you don't know. It's more about using the people that you already do know and kind of controlling what's within your grasp.
Okay. Oh, I get that. So I'm a natural introvert. I don't know about you, but I'm a really sociable introvert. But still, that old networking idea of walking into a room and handing out business cards frightened the life out of me, and it doesn't seem relevant today. So I guess, given that our audience that we're talking to today are mid-career professionals, give me some idea of some more problems. You talked about some of them, but some more problems that mid-career professionals encounter when starting to understand the true or the real value of their network.
Sure. I mean, there are a few. I'd say, again, people feel that they have to do networking. It's something that's expected of them. And networking, in my mind, it's something that a lot of people will only do when they need something. Yeah. So it's almost forced and false anyway. So, you know, kind of this pent up, I must go and do networking, people will rush out and try and make as many friends as they possibly can, as quickly as they can. And really talking to anybody that will listen. A bit like if you go to a conference, people are almost drawn towards either the celebrity or the more popular person in the room, rather than taking a bit of pause for thought and thinking, what value do I want to get out of this particular situation? Did I plan enough? Who am I going to seek out, really? And also, who am I going to give stuff to? Because people are interested in you as well. So networking isn't a one-way street; it's two-way. I think the way that social media has kind of invaded networking a little bit from a professional context is a negative thing. So using Instagram, Twitter, broadcasting stuff that is really social media type coverage on a LinkedIn newsfeed, I don't think is particularly useful. So ignoring that noise is a really important first step, I'd say. And also, you know, kind of not getting too excited and thinking about, you know, the bit that you can influence is the bit that's within reach. And that's really where you should start. So you start right at a very, you know, kind of a start and a kernel, and you build out your network in a kind of a methodical and a logical way. There are people that I meet on a daily basis that will, you know, they'll go out, they'll do lots of networking, lots of meetings, lots of coffees. And when I ask them what they actually get from that, the common answer is, I don't really know. Because they forget to ask for something. I think if people have agreed to meet you, they'll go into that meeting not really knowing what your expected outcome is. So remembering to ask for something is a critical part of networking. And that might be, you know, for a future meeting, or to introduce you to somebody within your personal network that there's some value in your meeting. Yeah. I think that's really important. Sorry, I'm labouring this question a little bit. Making sure that the person that you're meeting with knows what you do, that's really important. Don't assume anything. I mean, my area of expertise with kind of accountants and finance directors and CFOs, one person's finance director in a business might just be the wicket keeper, the guy that keeps the books, or the lady that keeps the books, but is more reactive than business partnering. Whereas in actual fact, a finance director or a CFO can wear many different hats. They could be the, kind of the corporate finance fundraiser to help grow the business. They could be the people that are, looking to take that business through an exit process. There could be lots of different things. So making sure that your message is consistent across your network, so that you remember it and you can practice it, and so that there's no confusion. And I guess one other thing that I'd say is somebody that you knew 10 years ago will know you of 10 years ago, not what you are currently. And that's particularly important with people that are interims, that have maybe been on a number of different journeys that have added to their skill set. And that might be a really big journey over the course of a decade. So I guess in summary, getting something and asking for something from a network meeting is really, really important. And then also remembering to follow up. That follow-up bit's really important. The bit that I mentioned earlier about people only network when they need something. If you actually build a little bit of networking into your monthly drumbeat and all of the things that you do, all of a sudden it's not networking anymore. It's a bit of continual professional development. It's just keeping your hand in effectively.
Well, that's uber valuable. And I saw that all through my career, and I see that with my current clients now. Yeah. This sort of anxiety, I've got to start networking. Even if they're gregarious and outgoing, they're uncomfortable asking for something.
Yeah.
And they forget that they can also give something. And that, I love that idea of it's just in your weekly drumbeat. That's a great phrase. But this is just something you do every Friday, every Tuesday, and actually you're just talking to humans.
Exactly.
You're just talking to humans and sharing value and I think that's so true. And I hadn't really thought about that before, that being explicit about what you're asking for, you know, so it's kind of results-based conversations, isn't it? So you're giving something. What have you given? But also what have you received? And it doesn't need to be big, like you said. It could just be a pointer in a different direction, or another conversation in a month's time or something. I love that. So much value there.
Yeah.
Now here's a question for you. I can't wait to hear what your answer is for this. There doesn't seem to be many options, but what are I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and I'm a content marketer in terms of my marketing strategy. So I like LinkedIn an awful lot for me. But you said in one of our previous conversations that you have some issues with using LinkedIn as your only networking tool. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not a LinkedIn basher. I think it's brilliant. I think particularly in the early days, it was a great tool for me to keep both kind of relationships that I'd built up in recruitment close and staying in touch with people. Yeah. So it was a good way of a good medium of communicating with people in the absence of a lot of what we have now. Now it's changed and it's really evolved. It's become a beast that is all about kind of jobs and recruitment, and it encourages everybody to act in a way that might not necessarily be comfortable to them. So it encourages you to broadcast and to post stuff. And I guess the thought process behind that is really to make you feel as though you're being noticed, and that you're coming up on kind of recruiters' searches or in-house expert searches if they're looking for somebody for a job. It's not. It's kind of evolved more into a kind of it's what I use it for most is discovery work. So if I want to map out a business or get a bit more of an understanding of the types of individuals that are involved in a business, LinkedIn is really good for that. And it will also highlight if I know somebody that's in any way connected with the business. Mm-hmm. As a way of networking yourself, I don't think it really gives very much back to yourself. So if I were to send a LinkedIn invite to somebody, my own personal discipline is that I need to at least know them, or I probably need to be introduced to them through somebody that I know. So there is a bit of commonality.
Yes.
On a daily basis, I get somewhere between 5 and 10 cold invitations to link in with people. And it's confusing. There isn't really any value there. Okay. So that there are a couple of things that I don't like the way that it encourages people to act in a way that probably isn't the way that it would normally be. And I remember in the early days there was almost like there was a Facebook kind of halo effect around try and make as many friends as you can. The first one to 500 plus connections is the winner.
Yes.
And I guess when you think about that, if you reflect on all the contacts that you have, and I'd say or from some of the research that I've done, the average person has about 600 contacts on LinkedIn.
Okay.
How many of those really do you stay in touch with regularly and are proper close network contacts? The average would be probably about 5%. You know, I've got a few thousand contacts, and you know, recruitment being my job, I only probably stay in touch with about 10% of them. So there is a lot of noise, a lot of chaff, a lot of distraction that makes you feel like you're networking, but in actual fact, it's not proper networking, I don't think, in my mind.
So it's just sort of busyness rather than
it's noise.
Taking your network noise. Okay.
And the last point that I'd make is, and the same with all of these communication kind of platforms, when you join, the first thing it will ask you to do is to effectively upload your contacts book to their database, which is a really clever, I mean, they were very explicit about this at the very beginning. It's a clever way of them creating that that viral effect. When they capture your details, they can then market and advertise to you and everybody else that you know.
Yeah. Which feels very Facebooky, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's some danger there, definitely, for midlife professionals looking at, you know, reevaluating their career, just using LinkedIn. So, well,
I mean, there aren't that many options, and this is the thing. They have I think on last bit of research, they have 5,000 new accounts created per day.
Whoa, really?
Which is crazy. Yeah.
So you just have to shout louder, which is mental. Yes. Oh, that's really interesting. And there aren't many choices. It's the go-to at the moment.
It is, yeah.
So where do you recommend individuals who are in the process of our audience at the moment, so reevaluating their career, their goals, their objectives, you know, trying to design more happiness into it, but where do they start the process of capturing their network, really capturing it, not in a LinkedIn 600 contacts kind of way?
I think the hardest thing for them is probably the bit that they've already done. They've made that decision that I'm going to change things, and that there is more out there that I would like to do. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, particularly the people that I meet, they have quite siloed roles. So getting advice from other people, peers, friends, whatever it might be, is usually skewed. So I think once they've made that decision, I think engaging the help of an expert coach or career advisor such as yourself, Lucia.
I didn't ask you to say that, but I'm grateful that you did.
I think having a third party view that doesn't really know you, that can think critically about the stuff that you do, and help you kind of distill down the best skills drivers, you know, and allow you to kind of form your own pitch that you will then go forward with, is really important. And I think once you've been through that process, you really understand the value of it. Mapping out, I mean, from a networking perspective, mapping out all of the people that you know, all of the relationships that you have, importantly that would remember you and that you like, it's the only start really for building out a proper robust network.
I totally agree. So if these people don't remember you, then you're just spamming them, aren't you?
Then they're not in your network.
They're not in your network. Okay, so they've got to know you, remember you, and like you ideally.
Ideally, yeah.
Yes.
I think you know fairly quickly if people don't like you or not.
Yes.
But yeah.
And you're unlikely to offer help or ask for help from people you know who don't like you. So those three parts are just total basic. That's where you start. Okay, that's really helpful. And those people, could they also be people you play tennis with? Could they also be people that you know, that are your friends, that would come over for a summer barbecue or something? Do you think networking is beyond the professional network?
They could be, yeah. I mean, back to our first question, I think networking is really about everything that you do. It's the collective of everything that you do. But there are going to be people there might be people that you met at a conference, or it might be that you were in a meeting and you exchange cards with people and then connected on LinkedIn. They're probably not what I would call part of your close network. They're more a contact or an acquaintance. Your network's very different. I think this is a core group of trusted peers that you know and that you value the advice of, and that you would give your advice. If you were asked for some help, then you would gladly gladly help. They're people that you've either worked kind of with or for, or even people that you've hired, that you rate highly and that would remember you. And that, again, that coming back to that remembering bit is really very important.
Yeah. So sometimes that can feel like establishing my network, or drawing my network as I call it, it feels like this gigantic problem, when actually it's a really small, I love the word that you used, a kernel. You start with the kernels of your network, it makes complete sense. So people who like you, who've worked with you, worked for you, or who've worked for. So I'd love to hear, I know that you've been working personally on developing an app that helps individuals to do the kind of working that we both believe in a very valuable way. So can you tell me a little bit about that, or tell us a little bit about that?
No, of course. So the app that I've developed, it's called My Exec Loop. And if I were to start my career again in recruitment from the very beginning, one of the things that would have been really useful is actually knowing what a decent network would look like. And that I think would be useful for any kind of professional that's going through a career journey. So what job functions are important? What, as you kind of grow through a business and take more responsibility and become more managerial, what kind of operational functions would it be useful to have within reach, to ask for some professional guidance, or some or some support on a project, or and it could be around hiring and human resources, it could be around corporate finance and fundraising and that type of thing. Actually knowing what a full and wholesome, robust network would look like would have been really useful. So I've tried to kind of address that. So My Exec Loop is basically, it's a blank canvas that you download onto your smartphone. So it's only on your smartphone, which means effectively it's portable and it's accessible from anywhere. You can network on the train, and it will allow you to probably take those top 10 or top 20 relationships that you want to stay in touch with regularly in a slightly better way than you would ordinarily. You invite them to connect with you through the app, through the platform, and it works in a way whereby the app overlays your contact book and allows you to communicate through it, but won't take your phone book. So there's a data angle there that protects people's contacts.
Okay.
It will generate a message that will be sent to your contact via phone, or via a mobile phone number. So that hurdle there, firstly, you need to know the person properly. So you'll have their mobile number.
Got it. Okay.
And secondly, psychologically, you need to be quite confident that they're going to say yes and they're going to want to stay connected to you. Which again is a nice acid test. It's not sending a message out into the ether and fingers crossed people will come back. It's actually really thinking about it properly in a mature way. So once you've built your network and you've told them that this is the way that you're going to manage your networking process, it will log when you've last either had an interaction, or a phone call, or a message, or a video conference. You can do all of that via the app. You can write a few notes after your call as a prompt for the next meeting, and then there's a kind of a clever dial thing whereby you can set a follow-up date, and then at 9 a.m. in the morning of that date, it will ping a notification up on the display of your smartphone, reminding you to give Lucia a call.
Brilliant.
So it's really very simple. It's data secure. It's not broadcasting and social media. It's a gated network, and it will remind you to stay in touch with those people that are really valuable for you.
So instead of this networking being this huge thing with if you say LinkedIn, most LinkedIn people have, the average number of contacts is 600. We know we can't keep in contact with those. So this feels like this is like your kernel of network. So it's
your exclusive core network of people that you really want to stay in touch with,
and that really want to stay in contact with you.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I find people that adopt this kind of methodology, that get their pitch right, map out what the network looks like, and then regularly stay in contact with them, that tends to create more opportunity than they would ever have just using usual routes to market, such as LinkedIn or whichever ways.
So lots of my contacts talk about the hidden market, or the underground market, or the never advertised market, and this is exactly how it's created with this, not necessarily with this app, but this philosophy of networking. It's true, it's valuable, it's real, it's give and take.
Absolutely.
It's small enough to be regular. And that's how someone will be tapped on the shoulder for a position that never ever gets to market. And that's what I love about this. The idea of doing it on a small basis, but uber valuable. You can still do all the LinkedIn. So you're not saying don't do that, but you have to recognize that there are different value propositions here, I guess.
Absolutely.
Love it. Well, thank you very much for giving us your insights into networking.
No, pleasure.
I've
Thank you for
loved
having me.
it. And I hope everyone else will as well.
Brilliant. Thank you.